Hey guys, it's Jazz and welcome back to my channel. I have got another pour for this video and I'm going to use a lot of, I want this to kind of look like nature in a painting if you would. So I've got some greens, a blue, copper, and a light brown. And this turned out so beautiful, you guys. It is one of my favorites. So the white I use is this acrylic. It's fairly thick. I get it at Michael's. I think I got this one at. It's titanium white, so it's completely opaque. And it's a heavier body paint, so you're going to want to add a little more Floetrol than usual. I don't use like a recipe or I don't measure anything out. I kind of add the paint with the Floetrol, mix it up, add a little bit of water if I need to, so I get a good consistency to it. And then I go from there. So I go kind of based on feel, not necessarily how much of whatever is in there, because I just don't want to take the time to measure anything. And in my opinion, you don't need to. But there are other people that do pours on here that do measure their stuff. So if you're really interested in that, you can go ahead and find that information out somewhere. But again, I don't measure stuff. I just kind of do it based on the pouring, kind of how it flows off the stick, and by feel. So I'm really careful about how much water I add at a time. Maybe like, I don't know, a quarter teaspoon at a time, if you will, just a tiny bit. Because if you make it too thin, then it's not going to cover your canvas well. It'll show the fibers of the canvas too much, and it just won't look as nice. So the colors I've used are Sap Green, Emerald Green, Phthalo Green, Prussian Blue, Copper, White, and a light teal. Light teal I got from mixing Phthalo Turquoise and White, which is that one right there. And the light brown I did using permanent brown, white, and bronze. So mostly white and just a couple little drops of brown and bronze until I got the creamy sand color I was looking for. And the nice thing about painting is that you can buy just a handful of paint colors and add different colors to it. So I use all different kinds and brands of acrylic paint. I don't really like the craft paint so much just because they're already really thin. So you have to use more of them to get a good color out of it. And it's really, for what you get, it's kind of expensive, to be honest. You get a lot more out of the thicker, heavier body artist quality paints than you will craft paint. So there's how I did the light brown. I've got a bronze, permanent brown, and white. And I love making colors. I love mixing different colors together to seeing what kind of shade I can get. That's a lot of fun for me. So that's what I like to do. And I like seeing how the different colors are going to look together. So here I've got a cup. I'm just layering my paint. There's no rhyme or reason how I layer them. I just add them in. And I do like to pour from the top because I feel like the paint, when it goes in the cup, it'll mix a little better. And you don't want it to really mix because you want the different shades to show up. But when you do it from top, it does kind of give a little bit of mix in there. And keep in mind that the color you put the most of in there, if it's mostly white, you're going to have mostly white on your canvas. Or it's going to tone down the brighter colors or darker colors that you have. So this is a 12 by 24 canvas. And I've got some white that I'm putting on the top and bottom edges. You don't have to do this. I like to do it because when your canvas is wet, it helps the paint flow better. That can be a good or a bad thing depending on how the paint decides to behave. But it's kind of similar to the watercolor effect where the paint won't move where it's not wet. The paint will move where it's not wet because it's a heavier paint than watercolor, but it goes easier if you've got paint already there. So we're going to start moving everything around. And as you do this, that spot right there I just pointed to, I want to keep that because I love how it looks. As you do this, you'll learn how to manipulate the board to keep spots you like and maybe pour off spots you're not that fond of. So I had my eye on that spot as I was moving the canvas around. I wanted to make it a little bigger and elongate it, but keep it on the canvas. I didn't want to pour it off. So I kind of kept my eye on it while I was manipulating my canvas to pour off more of the white, but keep that section on the canvas. And instead of having pictures at the end, I'm going to show you the varnished product in the next video, just so that you aren't waiting, because these do take a long time to dry, and then it takes several coats to varnish. So that I don't have to wait on publishing this video, I'll just have it on the next one. So here I'm blowing on the paint to get the white out of the way and to let the colors underneath show through more. If you use a palette knife, you can kind of ruin the effect. So if you blow on it, it will give you another different effect, but you'll get more color to show up. And I got that tip from Karen Goodrich, and I will have a link to her channel posted in the description box under this one. She's really phenomenal, so I recommend her highly. Okay guys, I'm going to pick up the canvas and try to show you some of the different areas in here that show more cells popping up, so you kind of get an idea of what those look like. Now, there's no silicone in any of my paint. I've kind of been trying to see what I can get it to do without the silicone. Might venture into that at some point. I do have it, but haven't gone there yet. So I really love how this looks right now. And you gotta kind of keep in mind that with this style of painting, it's incredibly unpredictable. The only thing you have control over is what colors you put in the cup. It's going to do what it wants to do. You can manipulate it to a certain extent, but if you're one of those people that needs to have control, this is not the style for you. So hope you don't get dizzy. But all those little white pockets are popping up. Those are cells. So the white paint is heavier. It's going to manipulate the colors because the colors are thinner. And you can make the paint as thin or as thick as you'd like, but kind of bear in mind that that affects how it behaves. So as this dries and as it sits, any air bubbles will come to the surface, and that will cause more cells to pop up, and the silicone aids in that. So you get some mixing, you'll get some blending, so you get different tones where the colors come together. And then depending on how you move the canvas back and forth is where you'll get different movements within the paint. So there's the pour, and I'm going to leave it to sit and dry. Now these will take several days to dry completely because there's several layers of paint on this, and you want to make sure you're leaving it to sit somewhere that's level, that has good air circulation, because if you leave it even a little bit tilted, it will shift and it will move. And if the top surface layer is dry, because it'll dry from the edges in, if that surface layer is dry and then it starts to move underneath, it'll distort the surface and look crinkly or weird. It won't look nice and smooth. So in the end of the video, you'll have some pictures where I will have varnished this, so bring the colors back up, because as this dries, the colors will get a little bit darker and they'll mute a little bit. Don't drip on your painting from your gloves. So the colors will kind of fall back just a tiny bit, not too much. But then when you varnish it and you put a clear gloss coat over the top, it'll bring those colors back to life. So it will look as shiny and pretty as it does when it's wet, which is the goal. So thanks for joining me today, guys. We will catch you later, and don't forget to comment and subscribe and let me know what you think.